Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a story that we are going to treat with the absolute utmost journalistic seriousness. We're talking about the dramatic political rise and catastrophic fall of the underground insect kingdom of Krummenagar. Deep beneath the city, right under the restaurants and apartments we're walking past every single day, there's this secret world, a world of tunnels, of crumbs, and ruled entirely by cockroaches. And we're going to look at a fascinating case study from our source material on how a new political movement promised to change literally everything for its six-legged citizens. It really brings us to this one core question. What actually happens when a cockroach promises unlimited pizza? I know, it sounds completely ridiculous, right? But think about it. What happens when a highly charismatic leader uses totally absurd political rhetoric to capture a desperate public? As we'll see in this story, whether you're walking on two legs or crawling on six, the mechanics of a populist uprising look incredibly similar. We're going to see exactly how empty promises can sweep an entire population off its feet and, well, the inevitable disaster that follows.
Okay, so here's our agenda for today's explainer. We'll start with the crisis in Krummenagar, then look at the campaign of impossible promises, move on to power, luxury, and missing crumbs, see how the journalist uncovers the truth, and finally wrap up with the fall and the lesson.
So let's jump right into part one, Crisis in Krummenagar, the catalyst for political change. Because listen, every political revolution starts with a systemic failure, and man, Krummenagar was essentially falling apart at the seams. Food scraps were becoming dangerously scarce, you had terrible infrastructure, meaning the sewers literally flooded every single rainy season, and on top of that, citizens were being shaken down by these ruthless mosquito gangs demanding protection money. But worst of all, and this is a real existential threat to the roach way of life, humans had actually started cleaning their kitchens. Can you imagine? So thousands of desperate cockroaches gathered in this abandoned bakery. We're talking everyone from the elderly down to little baby roaches sitting on biscuit crumbs. They were all just desperate for a solution, perfectly primed for a savior to swoop in.
Which brings us to Section 2, the campaign of impossible promises, selling hope over reality. Enter Karu Karappan, right in the middle of that massive bakery gathering. Dramatic music kicks in, a red bottle cap stage rises up, and Karu, rocking these dark sunglasses, jumps up on stage and announces the Cockroach Jana Party. And you got to admit, their branding was absolutely brilliant. Their symbol was a giant half-eaten biscuit paired with this incredibly catchy slogan, "More crumbs, better future." It was perfectly engineered messaging. It mobilized thousands of insects almost instantly, spreading this wave of hope through every drain and sewer in the city. And Karu knew exactly what he was doing. He used these escalating, frankly impossible promises to build this massive cult of personality. He wasn't just saying, "Hey, I'll fix the floods." No, he promised unlimited pizza crumbs, free cake crumbs every Sunday. But his absolute crowning pitch? Air-conditioned garbage bins. Literally, when he announced this, insects in the audience fainted from excitement. Now, rival parties just laughed at him, calling the whole thing impossible. But Karu understood something fundamental here. Desperate people don't want reality. They just want hope. And you see this dynamic perfectly during the big official election debate, which, by the way, was moderated by an elderly spider. So the spider asks how they plan to fund these promises. The rival leaders, like Buzzardin Mosquito of the Mosquito Development Party, give these standard, super boring political answers, explaining the reality of taxes and economic growth. But Karu? He just smiles confidently and says, "We will simply find more crumbs." The spider is stunned. Like, that's your entire plan? Karu says yes. And you know what? The crowd goes absolutely wild. Logic was completely out the window. The Cockroach Jana Party destroyed the competition on election day, and they celebrated with actual sugar crystal fireworks. Karu Karappan was officially the chief minister of the sewers. All right, moving on to Section 3. Power, luxury, and missing crumbs. The reality of rule. Because, as we all know, winning an election is one thing, but actually governing is a whole different ballgame. Almost instantly, Karu's administration shifted from these humble promises to just massive self-enrichment. Just look at the ridiculous gap between the campaign hype and reality. They promised personal crumb accounts and free sewer Wi-Fi, right? What did the public actually get? Well, Karu got an enormous luxury offices with golden bottle cap walls. They promised air-conditioned garbage bins for everyday citizens, but it was the politicians who were kicking back with chocolate wrapper curtains and pizza box furniture. The regular folks were stuck waiting endlessly for their pizza crumbs, and absolutely nothing trickled down to the tunnels. And that leads into Section 4. The journalist uncovers the truth, following the missing crumbs. But hey, democracy has its watchdogs, right? In this case, it was a young investigative reporter named Ronnie Reporter. She wasn't blinded by all the populist charm. She noticed a huge red flag. Government spending was going way up, but public services were completely gone. So she just followed the data. Her investigation was straightforward but super effective. She started tracking secret officials, digging through hidden documents, and interviewing key witnesses.
And the data she uncovered led to an absolute bombshell. The sheer scale of the theft was mind-boggling. We are talking about millions of public crumbs that had simply vanished into thin air. Ronnie's report revealed that the public's hard-earned money was actively funding luxury cockroach resorts, private tunnels, exclusive cheese clubs, and VIP garbage bins that only the politicians were even allowed to step foot in.
Well, when Renee released that report, it instantly ignited mass protests. I mean, the story spread like wildfire through every drain and garbage bin. That same adoring public that was fainting at Karu's speeches just a few weeks prior, they turned into a furious mob. They marched through the tunnels carrying signs yelling, "No crumbs, no votes," and "Where's the pizza?" The whole illusion was totally shattered. The citizens finally woke up and realized they had traded their votes for a complete fantasy.
Which brings us to our final section. Number 5, the fall and the lesson, accountability in Krumnagar. So Karu is now facing a total political disaster. He calls this emergency press conference, sweating, just throwing out desperate new promises, like he literally promised flying Leaf helicopters. But this time, total silence. Not even a cricket chirped. As this timeline shows, the downfall was incredibly swift. Week 1, during a final debate, citizens are demanding to know where the money went, and he's just floundering at the podium. Week 2 rolls around, it's election time again, and millions of insects cast their votes strictly for revenge. By week 3, the Cockroach Jana Party suffers a historic, crushing defeat. The leaders vanish, the headquarters goes silent, and that entire political machine collapses overnight. Fast forward a few months, and Karu is living all alone in this dusty, abandoned kitchen cupboard. No bodyguards, no VIP bins, and as he's looking through a crack in the wall, he watches ordinary cockroaches out there, sharing crumbs and fixing their tunnels together without him. And it's in that moment he finally grasps what true leadership actually is. It's not about the flashy speeches, or being popular, or just winning elections. It is entirely about serving your people and building a better community. Empty promises might win you an election, sure, but only honesty can actually earn trust and sustain power. The source material has this brilliant quote that perfectly sums it up. "Trust, once lost, is harder to find than a pizza crumb in a clean kitchen." It's a really harsh lesson, but it's one that Peru learned way too late. But we're going to wrap up this explainer with a pretty provocative little post-credit reality check. Just as the dust finally settles in Krumnagar, a brand new young cockroach steps up onto a stage and promises free ice cream for everyone. And guess what? The crowd starts cheering all over again. It really leaves us wondering, doesn't it? Is this cycle of populist politics, whether we're talking about the insect world or human society, just doomed to constantly repeat itself? Are we always going to be easily swayed by the promise of unlimited pizza? Or will we eventually learn to demand the hard data? Just something to think about the next time you hear a political promise that sounds just a little bit too good.